All right, TBM Legion, the Natural Edge audience. Hope you guys are doing awesome. We are bringing a live discussion to you today, talking about creating high-performance environments. We've got Simon Jeffries here, personal friend of mine, founder of the Natural Edge holistic health coaching service, and former Special Forces. So I tell you what, Simon, why don't you jump in and just introduce yourself so everyone knows who we've got here, and you'll do a much better job of it than me.
I thought you were going to say, I hope everyone's awful when you started that introduction. Yeah, I'll jump in. I should probably say co-founder of the Natural Edge, or John will be having words with me. Yeah, so I'll give a really brief background, I guess, summary. So I joined the military, Royal Marines, same as you, in, when did I join? 2008. Did some service in the General Corps, and then I first went and joined the SFC branch, which is basically comms for Special Forces, down in Poole, and I then later did full selection and served with the SBS for the remainder of my career. Having left, did a brief stint in London because I thought maybe I could do the whole consultancy thing. Turns out I couldn't because I hated it, and basically decided to go down the business route with another guy, John, that I served with, and had like numerous failures and iterations of different things. And then we started the Natural Edge, basically because we wanted to do something that A, we were passionate about, and B, we saw so much misinformation out there, and so many people struggling with their health. So that's why we decided to go down that path. And the Natural Edge is essentially, it's like you said, it's a holistic health coaching service. So we're great believers in you can't compartmentalize health. You know, a lot of people just look at the training aspect or maybe what they're eating, but you can't ignore other massive drivers like sleep and especially mindset. We put a lot of emphasis on changing behaviors and building habits as the backbone of everything we do with our courses. And yeah, that about brings you up to date. So that's what we're running right now, is TNE.
Hello. How's my audio?
Hello, Gaz.
Oh,
Great.
Good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I just I use my super technical abilities and switch my phone on and off again.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah. It was a classic.
Works the charm.
That is pretty much all you learn on the FTF Communicators course, is if a radio isn't working, just turn it on and off again. And
Yeah. Try and delegate it to somebody else if you've got some rank.
I don't know if you're if Gareth sat in direct sunlight, but it's pretty much just his head. And then
I can tell my camera's overexposed. Let's try and fix it. Pow! How's that? Has it readjusted?
Just emanating positive radiance.
Yeah.
What have you been eating?
Ready break.
Champion.
Yeah.
Awesome.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
No. Let's try again. Let's let the camera adjust. Pow! How's that?
Yeah.
It's overexposed, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, you play with that, and we'll delve a bit deeper into Simon's awesome introduction. So, Si, that was a great intro, and that's sort of exactly the reason. We pretty much summed up the reasons why I really wanted to get you on for a discussion. I'm always looking at your page and reading your articles and stuff that you put up, because it's very much in line with the message that I'm also trying to put out there, which is that it's, you know, exactly as you just said it, there's more to this than just a good diet, regular exercise. You know, it's about cultivating that entire environment, taking that holistic approach. And one of the other reasons I wanted to bring you on as well is because, you know, your ex-Special Forces, that's very highly revered by, you know, everyday people in civilian street. And one of the other things I'm always trying to put across to people really is that, you know, we all kind of starting off on pretty much the same, you know, with the same kind of physiology, with the same kind of the same psychological state to begin with, and we end up being products of how we cultivate that environment. And what I'm trying to kind of deliver to everybody, I suppose, is that you are more than capable of doing whatever it is you aspire or you look up to in other people. So I wanted to ask you, because I think it's nice to start with a bit of a story and give people a chance to kind of connect with you a little bit more. Like, what would you put down as some of your sort of greatest personal achievements? I'm interested to see if they're related to the military or not, or if it's something a bit unusual.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, passing selection for me is definitely up there, just because, I mean, in a way, I was very lucky in that I knew from when I was like 5 years old, all I wanted to do was the military. So it almost made life and life choices very simple up until that point. I can't even tell you, I don't have any family in the military. I can't really tell you why that seed was planted. But so I always knew at the back of my mind that that's what I was going to do, with the ultimate goal of passing selection. You know, for me, growing up, it was never, you know, kids want to grow up and be footballers or whatever it is. For me, for whatever, the military resonated, and that was my ultimate goal. And I guess the highest level within that is special forces. So it's something I knew that I was always going to do. So I'd say that passing that is definitely up there as my greatest achievement. But interestingly, or kind of when I reflect on that and a lot of the stuff we talk with T&E, we talk a lot about process rather than the actual event. And when I actually look back on it, almost the process of getting to that point, you know, that was equally enjoyable because it's the challenge and the journey is actually passing itself. I didn't actually say, after I passed selection, I pretty much did the minimum term and then left because I was already, after a kind of year, don't get me wrong, it was, you know, great and loved doing the job and still loved the military. But conversely, although I knew that I was always going to join, I always knew that I didn't want to do I didn't want to do it my whole life. And once I passed selection, you have like it's great that summer I passed. So I did the winter selection, passed in summer, and you have like a summer of fun and, you know, you're then into the job. But already I was then starting to think, well, you know, what's next? And I almost had, especially when I left the military, I almost had what everyone else had or has experienced before and not really knowing what to do. And then it was a combination. I started that job in London, and I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and that resonated along with the whole business. I'd seen a few other things around business, and it doesn't take me long to make a decision and know whether it's right. And as soon as I went onto the business path, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I will do for the rest of my life. In the same way that selection, and it's kind of, I am probably do have the extreme personality type that I'll go all in on it, and it becomes very defining. But once I know intrinsically, I'm like, yeah, this is right. This is what I want to be doing. Once you get that, it does in a way make life easy. Not in the sense that, I mean, it's been incredibly hard setting up the natural edge, in many ways far harder than selection was, which we can dig into. But at the same time, again, it's rewarding because you put yourself on the right path, which intrinsically it just feels right. And I think we see this a lot with people in our community and just generally talking. And I think a lot of people, you know, when you're talking about accomplishments and things, it's putting yourself, choosing a path in life that really resonates with you. And the thing is, it's not easy because for a lot of people, they've maybe falling into jobs that perhaps they just plan to do for a short time, and then, you know, you get promotions, all the rest of it. And the same can happen in relationships. And we go through some process with our mindset stuff in the academy, where we encourage people to really dig into that kind of why question of what you really want to be doing, what resonates. And it's hard because it does force you to make hard decisions or think about things that you possibly might want to ignore. But I think the more that you can do that, the happier your life will be. And initially you may have to make some, like I said, hard decisions and choices. But the difference between, living a life that resonates with you, and one way you're kind of living it more for other people or other factors, it's a huge defining factor in how we find happiness. So kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I think the company for me was Special Forces, definitely passing that selection, and probably now just getting to where we have done with the Natural Edge, although it was still like so long to go, so far to go with it.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So it's funny that you said you knew that you wanted to be in the military right from the moment you were very young. I think you said 5. But that once you'd passed selection, you felt like you ticked that box, whatever it was, you ended up coming out of that and going down the business path. But that really resonated with you. Did you ever have the same feelings with your military career as you had in that moment?
What do you mean in the sense that?
Did you get the same fulfillment out of being in the military as you said something like you just really knew as you started down the business path that was one?
Yeah, no, sorry, I get it. To me, again, we say all this stuff. Everyone's got different circumstances, and sometimes it's incredibly hard. But I would have done the military for free. I would do T&E. If T&E only ever, we could just get enough to live or get by or whatever, then I would do it. We spent for a year, John and I moved back into my parents. We lived at my parents' house. We were paying each other 400 quid a month and sharing a car that cost 300 quid. And if I had to do that for 10 years, then I would, because I don't know how to fully describe it. It's what makes you happy. It's your core being, and that is your path in life. It's like, this is what I want to do, to build this, to help as many people as possible. And it's the same with the military. I would have done the military for free. I loved every moment of it. I just knew, and again, it's hard to describe why I knew. I think it probably was passing selection, but I knew that I'd done it. There wasn't anything else. I asked myself at the time, if I leave now, is there anything that I will regret that I haven't done? And there were a few jobs and posts that you can get that was like, oh yeah, that would be cool to do, but nothing strong enough that I would, look back and regret not doing. I knew there was other stuff that I wanted to do. So yeah, the military things, that path, and the same with T&E, they're kind of very similar on. I had that very strong conviction that was the right path to follow. Yeah,
that's awesome, mate. So, your biggest achievement there, then, I guess, is Special Forces. But you said that also, business in many ways is much more difficult, and you've outlined some of the reasons there, like having to make those personal sacrifices and to get it off the ground.
I think you and I have enough chats back and forth about the roller coaster is trying to start something online, which seems to be some kind of black magic, dark art.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. So, the UK Special Forces, that goes without saying, that's an unbelievably difficult thing to accomplish. That's something that most people would physically not be capable of doing, and mentally is, more of a challenge probably than the physical side. And you said, business is potentially even harder, but in different ways. Would you say that you're a person who was born with the natural skills to, achieve these kind of seemingly sort of superhuman feats, because they are, in some people's eyes, they are that difficult? They put them, they are put on that kind of pedestal.
I think so. To split them up, like selection of Special Forces physically. So if you can take, for example, I was talking about it the other day. When you turn up for selection, I think it was 220 people on mine. And all of those people who turn up have already served in the military for a few years. You know, when I did it, most of them in Afghan, predominantly from Royal Marines or the Parachute Regiment. Like so there is some luck involved is in terms of picking up an injury, but bar that, every single person there is physically capable of passing that course. And when you look around at the beginning, you always do that. You know, you kind of look at people and you're like, ah, he looks strong, he looks fit, he'll definitely, you know, he's going to be good. And then you look at other people and you're like, why do they turn up? And honestly, you cannot, there are blokes that you think are strong and fit and they're gone on like day 2. And you're like, it just is mind boggling. It is far more mental than physical for that course. Now, how much of that, so this is kind of a wider question, is there a biological kind of, is there something innate that people who just have that kind of stubbornness, so you can apply this to, I don't know, mountaineers or, you know, people who build massive businesses and go through hardship, as in like to have a certain something in your brain that means you're basically just going to carry on doing it regardless and not stop? Or is that something that we can all kind of cultivate? And I think, you know, definitely we can cultivate it. But again, it does come back down to, you know, with selection, like it's shit basically. You do the phase that everyone knows around, you know, Wales, you're basically yomping around all day. You know, I did it in winter. You get up in the dark, go and have a horrible military breakfast on Sennybridge Camp, the shittest camp around. You like sit the food down and you walk down to the wagon, sit in the drizzle, get on a 4-ton truck, drive for an hour to some desolate Welsh landscape, knowing that you then get out, get given your grid, and you're just on your own for like 8 hours, just walking around terrain like bogs up to your knee. Honestly, the stuff you see blokes like throwing weapons. Oh, this is shit. And it is. It's just boring. And that's not even kind of in that work. You know, that's the phase that everyone knows about within the military or that world. You kind of know like that's not even selection. All that is a weeding out phase to get rid of anyone who's really unsuitable. It's just to get your plane ticket to the jungle, which is even more shit. Like the jungle, honestly, you can't describe how bad it is. You just on your kind of limit for the entire time, and just a really hard environment to soldier in. So basically, it's a really shit time. But you also know it's just 6 months, and I do strongly believe that it comes down to that internal driver again. If you don't have such a strong desire that you are going on that course and you are not coming off unless you get a medical whatever, or you just get a fail, that no matter how bad it gets, you're going to stay, because being in the special forces means something deep inside you. If you're doing it just because of the, you know, prestige or, you know, the opportunities you get or more money or something like that, it's not a strong enough reason when it's those shit times. And that's why I think it's akin to business. And I think the reason why business in a way is harder, you know, selection, it's 6 months, you go and do it and you're either good enough or you're not at the end of it. Business, as you know, like we could do this for 2 years, 5 years, 20 years. There's no guarantee. There's no end. It's not like you get to it and you've made it. You're kind of, it's a real unknown. But again, if you don't have that real strong desire and believe in the company you're making or whatever it is, there are, as you know, there's so many shit days. And it almost gets worse because there is no, like I said, there's no guarantee. John and I already have, like we spent all of our savings from the military. We moved back to my parents' house. And it's taken just under 5 years to get to where we are with T&E. And even now, it's still not where we need it to be. So it's not all been on T&E. We tried another couple of things there, but the general kind of entrepreneur's path, or whatever you want to term it, you know, it's taken a long time and definitely sacrifice. Like, I've been terrible with catching up with friends for the last couple of years. It puts massive pressure on relationship. I mean, it didn't end my last one, but it massively contributed to it. and it puts loads of, my partner now, great, but it definitely put a huge amount of pressure on it, which I know you've experienced as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's 10 times more lonely than anything else I've done, to be honest. Starting a business on my own.
I think that's the other thing.
It's
It's
just
really
horrible.
hard to explain, like, unless you've gone through or doing it yourself. People, anyone that sets up a business or has a go, full respect to them, because like you said, it is. I've been lucky that I kind of John to share the load, because it is, like you said, it really is lonely, quite a lonely path.
I mean, hands down, the worst week of my life was in training for the Royal Marines, I would say. But the thing about that is that you've always got the camaraderie to support, and it's something that I want to go into a bit more detail in either now or later in the discussion. But it's such an important thing to have that social network, and when you're going down the entrepreneurial route or just the self-employed route, you lose a lot of that. Even if you're in a partnership, it's only two of you. You're only sharing the burden with one other person, while the rest of the world around you has no clue, what's going through your mind. And, I still remember. It was, I don't know if you would even remember it, but the second last exercise that you do in NOD training. I just remember crawling through this ice cold river in the middle of the night in full chemical warfare suit, and just thinking, can it get any worse than this? But it can, because then there was a troop of there's probably still about 25 of us left at that point, and you're all in it together, and you got this common enemy, and you're semi-conditioned to it by that point, and all these other factors as well. But the point is that camaraderie obviously makes a huge difference. Social networks are a huge thing. I did a post earlier today that was a quote from a book that I'm reading at the moment. It was actually recommended by our mutual friend Phil, and that was saying something along the lines of social relationships as the biggest indicator for happiness, like a prescription for high performance. And I think that's absolutely true, and I think that's one of the reasons why people who go self-employed put so much emphasis on the value of mentorship, and you always find these groups, these sort of support groups, and I think people that are in business themselves generally really lay into those wherever they can, find that opportunity for a bit of support, a little bit of camaraderie within that dark space.
I think it's massive, like social relationships in general. You can judge someone by the people that they're friends, their peer groups that you associate with, and exactly that. And it's the same as you're with your patrol, and the patrol that you get, because it's all putting patrols, which then change as you go through, as people leave, and it makes a huge difference. I was really lucky; my patrol was brilliant, and we bonded really well, and it does make a huge difference to the experience, because it is shit. I remember you saying that the first was one of the first or second nights we were putting our hammocks up, and it was like a long day doing whatever, and the space that we had wasn't that big, so it was a bit of flat ground, and four of the guys got in there, and then me and another guy went down into this really shitty bit. It's a bit of a slope. It's taken me ages to set it up, honestly, like trying to get the trees right and stuff like that. And I finally did it. Everyone else was in it by this point, and obviously you need to try and get as much sleep as possible. I finally got in it. I lay down. After about 10 seconds, I heard this creaking sound, and the tree that I fixed it to was obviously rotten. It fell down, so I fell onto the deck. I said, Jeffers, are you all right? I was like, yeah, good. Just going to take a moment here. Honestly, yeah, it is, but you've got to laugh as well. I think that's the other thing, having people around, just to have humour when you're going through stuff, because if you don't, it is that whole, commando ethos, humour in the face of adversity. If you don't have that, you will end up crying. You just got to laugh about it.
You're done for. You're just done for. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's nothing like humor and adversity. I think that's the one thing that can get you through anything. I mean, I think that's the most fun. Like, when I was in the TA, when I was in a London shoot, various adventures I've had, acting from South Africa to Kenya. Like the funniest things are just the funny little things that happen, and sometimes it can be the smallest thing. Like, I mean, I've got a story. It's not as dramatic as yours. It cracked me up. I was in Wales. I was setting up my basher kit, and the ground was really soft, and I knew it was going to rain, so I was trying to pull my basher, my tarpaulin, for common speech, so people understand, nice and tight, so it didn't sag and I didn't end up getting rained on in the night. And I pulled this bungee really taut, and I put this peg in the ground, and it went ping, and it just flew off, and from tens of meters away, I heard this tent peg hit a tree, but it must have got there in about half a second. But the humor for me was in the shit situation, just how fucking fast that tent peg flew. and I can't, it was like a sort of Wile E. Coyote moment, just like the lethality, the potential lethality of this tent peg, just how somehow it missed all the other lads that were bashing up and was just flying like an arrow, hit some fir tree about, I don't know, 20, 30 meters away, bam, just so quickly. So you know what I mean? It's not this story that would immediately be funny to everybody, but for me in the moment, I the cartoon of it was just hilarious.
It is those
little things like that.
Yeah, it's those little moments that you have that are just moments
just getting through. Yeah. Or the other one, the funny one was a mate of mine came back and I noticed his legs were covered in something, and he'd been for he'd gone to the toilet, and there was one shovel to go around everybody, known as the shit shovel. And he goes, "Oh, Royston, you just went for a crap. Have you got the shit shovel?" I was like, "No, I just picked up." I said, "No, I put it under a rock." And what he'd done is, instead of just picking up a rock and going in the hole, he'd gone for one, picked up a rock and dropped it on there, and his legs were covered in poo, afterwards. And it's just these little funny things, because all these guys are completely knackered. Yeah. It's just all these little things. I used to remember getting a kick because you'd hear it in the night, everybody be bashing up, and you'd suddenly hear an and they'd roll over, and someone's got a cramp in the calf or in the hamstring because you'd done the same thing as well. So periodically throughout the night, you just hear shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. It's the same stuff, but it's knowing you're all in the same boat, and because you can relate, there's almost that Schadenfreude, where you're just exactly how it feels, and it's funny.
It's a relatability of suffering, suffering together with others. It definitely eases the burden.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It was probably why the whole business thing, like you said, is worse, because you are suffering it alone pretty much. And again, you just need that strong conviction to get through it.
We need that drive, don't you? Which is what you started to kind of touch on a second ago. And one of the sort of questions I was going to ask you is, what are the most critical factors for you in your personal life, but in terms of what you're coaching to people as well, for creating that environment for success? And I mean, we've already started to touch on several of them, which are obviously the social networks, and you started to talk about them, a couple of a little way back in that conversation about passing selection. You just got to want it badly enough. If you want it badly enough, you can get there. And I think this is definitely half the battle for a lot of the people that come to me when they come for coaching, is they've been trying to force themselves into a lifestyle that just doesn't fit what they can enjoy. They're not trying to create an environment that they can actually thrive in. They're trying to create an environment that they think they will thrive in, but then almost battling their own resistance. I mean, exercise is a classic example. People trying to get into running and they just hate running, or diet, again, cutting out all the food groups that they really enjoy and being left with nothing, and then it's unsustainable because it's miserable. And so, I mean, that's a massive one. You're talking about kind of wanting it badly enough. I mean, how important do you do you consider that to be as a factor for creating an environment for success, and what are the other kind of critical elements that you would throw in there as the top few?
I think basically for us, and the way that we approach it, it comes down as a split. So there's probably a few key points there. As I said earlier, with T&E, we put the backbone of everything is the mindset portion of it, in the sense that most people out there have a good idea of what to do, as in, we all pretty much know we should get 8 hours sleep, that we shouldn't eat crap processed food, and that we should move regularly in some form of way. It doesn't help the issue that there's so many bad kind of diets and programs out there that offer quick fixes that confuse the matter. But at the heart of it, we kind of all have a rough idea of what we should do. So therefore, the big problem is it's people attribute, it's willpower or motivation that people are struggling with to do. So we do a lot of work on mindset, because tied into that, and again, through all of our life experiences, we basically all have narratives that we use to navigate the world. So, we're constantly bombarded with information. The world is a complex place. We distill that down into our own personal narratives, which are formed through childhood as our formative years. And there are some biological drivers, and then experiences. And until you start bringing awareness to what your stories are, it's quite hard to make a change. It's basically how you see yourself, even if you're not completely conscious of it. A lot of people have kind of suffer with they're overweight, it's just past them, or they naturally hold more weight, it's just who they are, therefore they'll never get to a certain point, or a lot of people struggle with not feeling they deserve certain stuff. And until you kind of shine awareness of those, it's very hard to make a change. So we do a lot of work around that. And then the kind of the practical side of it, I think a big problem is kind of what you said there. People see, especially social media now, they think they should be doing stuff a certain way, and people throw themselves straight into it. They basically try to make too many changes too fast. So our huge, the stuff we handle with people all the time is small steps to really start slow and build the behaviors first, and don't worry about performance at the beginning. Everyone kind of wants to be at their goal, or however they want to look, within 4 weeks, within a couple of months, whereas most people need a lot longer than that. And if you can get someone to kind of temper their expectations and actually start embracing the process rather than obsessing about the goal, we found that people have far more success, because they're also not hinging. It comes down to selection again. If you put your happiness on what the end result is, then you're always putting off happiness to what that is. And inevitably, people are always saying, I'll be happy when I'm 2 stone lighter, I'm happy when I can run a 5K in whatever time. Most of the time when you get to that, there's a kind of fleeting moment of, yeah, it was great, I've done it. You kind of praise yourself. But then there's always, the goalposts always move. There's always, well, now I should probably lose another half a second, or I should just go a little bit quicker. Whereas if you actually learn to enjoy the process, and that means choosing the exercise, or that, like you said, that is sustainable with you and can work with you through the process of building the right habits, that's when it becomes a lifestyle, and you're not just doing something for an 8-week program. And that is our whole, I guess, overriding ethos, is to change your lifestyle into one that does become the rest of your life, as opposed to, I need to do this exercise program for 6 weeks and then, that's fine. It doesn't work like that. So I think to create that environment, there's lots of things to it. Like you said, you have to work on the mindset component. There's no two ways about it. But aside from that, it's using small steps and habits. It's surrounding yourself with the right people. It's why we have a big community aspect, so that you're in a supportive group. A lot of the people we found, a lot of the people in our community, it's a common thing we've heard over and over again. You know, a lot of their friends don't, you know, they're not interested or kind of aren't willing to make the changes to those lifestyle to improve their health. And they actually, some of them struggle, they post in our groups, they've had like negative comments from those people. Unfortunately, with humans, it's always easier to drag someone down to your level than to make changes yourself. Whenever people say stuff, it's always a reflection of something, you know, it's externalizing stuff that they're feeling internally. So surrounding yourself with people that are actually going to driving towards the same kind of goals and will support that is massively important. And then you can dig, you know, even further into that within the creating an environment for success. You know, small thing, environment design is something we talk about. You know, what you have in the house, the foods that you have there, planning your exercise in a way that it kind of fits into your lifestyle, and you're not trying to again make huge changes. You'll be far more likely to go to the gym or attend a class that is, say, on your route to or from work, as opposed to one where you have to drive an hour out of your way, even if maybe that is like the perfect class for you and this one isn't quite so much. It doesn't matter. You know, if it's the perfect one but you never go to it or go to it once, then it's no good, as opposed to one that you will go to consistently and regularly. Is that
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I love everything that you said there about, you know, wanting to enjoy the process, because what people generally seem to do is they allow themselves to believe in moments of high motivation that they're prepared to sacrifice a large degree of happiness in the short term for this happiness that they believe is going to come from the longer term goal. And then in reality, it turns out that that's not true. You get maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even a couple of months down the journey and realize, oh, actually, I'm having a rethink about this. I'm not prepared to sacrifice all this short-term happiness for, you know, this long, arduous, grueling journey to get to a goal that they're not necessarily convinced they're even going to achieve. And in any case, you know, you can't be hinging your happiness on that longer-term outcome, because it might not happen, and you don't need to be. You know, you need to be enjoying the process. I was reading through one of the articles on your website earlier. Actually, it was talking about, you know, the importance of enjoying the journey rather than chasing the destination, and I think that's a really nice way to put it. So yeah, we talked a little bit about kind of camaraderie, a little bit about fulfillment. Gaz, you might be able to add into this, actually, because I remember we were talking last week, and I think it was last week, and I was asking you how you sort of created, or how you cultivated your environment for success during your fighting career, and you were kind of saying that you cheated a bit because you moved into the gym. But funnily enough, you're not the only guy who's done that. We know other people. I know at least one person at London Shoot Fighters who was living in a van outside the gym for however many months, which seems to be a common theme there. But, you know, for me, that was your way of cultivating that environment, by removing the distractions, putting yourself into that situation. You know, what other factors have you done personally, or have you seen from like the guys there? Obviously, that's a very high level mixed martial arts gym. But what other kind of factors go hand in hand with cultivating that environment where you can stay focused and stay driven to sort of high performance goals like that?
I think for something like that, what made London Shoot very special is faith in the coaches. They've got they are amazing coaches, and they don't need to say it. They just are. The people they produce, the manner, the way in which they teach, they're just great coaches, and it cultivates this amazing faith that the student has in them. And in many ways, when you're trying to be the athlete and thinking for yourself, how am I going to program this? I'm not working enough on that. You're trying to do a self-appraisal, which is always going to be biased. It's a bit like what you were saying the other week. You read in that Dave Goggins book, like your mind has a tactical advantage on you because it knows all your weaknesses. It's going to play to all your demons. if you have a coach or a mentor or whoever that you 100% trust, you only need to do one thing. That's everything they say. You don't need to think anymore. There's actually only one thing you've got to do. And we've probably, sometimes, I know this sounds a bit arrogant, but I've had people on the fitness retreats and, had personal training clients and stuff like that. I think, Jesus, this person's really overthinking it. And, it's like we were saying earlier about enjoying the process. It's like, if only this person can enjoy the sessions, stop thinking for themselves, just do everything I say, and they'll make their life so much easier. It's stressful trying to manage yourself. So in that sense, I got rid of the discomfort of having to do all the self-appraisals, and it was just feedback to my coaches. And I would let Paul and Alexi give me their thoughts and set my programs and set my goals for the day. And for me, I just, again, enjoyed the process. That process with martial arts, like most sports, most people get into sports because they love doing them. I remember I was probably about 20 years old or something, where I started getting good, and I was always competing against guys in the top 5, top 3 at my weight in the country. And this advantage that they really had was, one, they were older, and so they had that maturity, and it was just purely about fitness and conditioning, because I'd get so demotivated by that. I know I'm actually on a technical level more talented, as it were, than these individuals, and I was just I'd slowly wither, and I had to have a real sort of soul search. And I thought, Jesus, if I'm going to push this and get far with it, I can't just spar and hit pads and be a ninja. I have to do all that bloody running and jumping up and down. I have to actually, get some conditioning on the go. And that really was eventually, several years later. I was about 26 when I moved into the gym, where I really gave them the mantle on that, and just followed the coaches. So when it comes to those social aspects, maybe finding people you have faith in, and you can believe that their appraisal of you and your performance is accurate, because you're so biased in and of yourself. You in many ways, you can't trust yourself. You can't trust yourself. You've unless you're 90 years old and you've seen it all, and you really know yourself like the Buddha or something. You cannot do an honest self-appraisal. I think it's very, very difficult. So I think it's, for me, it was having faith, finding people that I had faith in, that I believed truly could bring out the best in me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, definitely the belief aspect is a massive one, isn't it? I mean, one of the reasons that people are so keen to get coaching in the end is because they obviously want that accountability, but it eliminates a lot of the doubt that leads you down that path of, questioning whether to bother or not. If you can't believe and expect the results, then it is a very short space of time that you can really put in the effort to get to the ultimate goal, isn't it? Which again lends itself to what we've just been talking about enjoying the process. If you can enjoy the process, then whether the outcome is going to happen or not becomes slightly less important anyway. But you can tolerate it for longer,
I think it also something that Gaz just importantly touched on there is it simplifies the process. So many people overcomplicate everything. So in the same way you said there with with that with the fighting, all I had to do was basically I listened to the coach's program, and I don't need to worry about should I be doing this today or that training. You're utilizing their experience. Someone who's further ahead down the line, they're like, just follow this process and you will get the results if you put consistent the effort in. And it's something we see it all the time with people that come to the natural edge. It's so confused by all that, should I be keto diet? Should I be plant-based? Should I be high fat, low carb? Is HIIT training better? Or I should be doing this? Or should be doing, because there's so much stuff out there with social media now. And most of the people just need almost to be told. It's just like in the same way. So the coaches that we've got, Ed and Dave, and we use Rachel Hobbs' nutrition course, all experts in that field. And it just simplifies the process. We just have a roadmap through the academy, and it's like, get on that roadmap and just follow each of the weeks. If you need to repeat stuff, fine, but we've almost removed the thinking out of it.
Yeah.
What we do is within that roadmap, the kind of, you know, if people need to change things or they have an injury or something like that, then they can access the coaches to adapt it slightly. But in general, they've got a parameter, they've got well, exactly what it is, a roadmap to follow. And once you simplify down the process and just hit those core actions consistently, you suddenly start seeing results. So many people are trying different things all the time and not sure what to do, but they never get the consistency that they need to actually see any results.
Yeah, consistency is key. I have a lot of people sort of asking me things like, oh, what do I need to do to this or that or that? And the simple answer is train. I don't care if you run consistently. I don't care if you lift weights consistently. Look, you don't have a programming problem. What you have is a training problem. You don't do any, or you don't do any consistently. And I've got stories about that. There was a guy I was at uni with, and according to him, he'd tried everything. He was a sort of brainiac type, and read up on this, and he was doing this bodybuilder's split routine, and he wasn't getting any gains, and then he went on steroids, and then he just ended up looking water retention-y and flabby and all this kind of stuff. And then one day I saw him train on the weights in the gym, and I almost used his name then, and I said, mate, your weights are too light. There's zero intensity. Like all these programs and everything you're doing, how about you try something like this? Pick a movement, pick a weight. Find a weight that you can lift maybe 8 to 10 times before you fail. Put it down again, have a rest, and do it again 3 or 4 times. It's as easy as that, and you're going to get results. And like just that lesson in just intensity changed everything. It changed everything. So this guy was like I said, he was planning everything. But there's that, that simplicity. Like sometimes it really is as simple as that. I get so many people now asking me, I don't do anything. I'm sedentary. I really want to start training. And I say, get a stopwatch and walk around the block. And then, walk around the block and try and walk around a bit faster. And then when you're ready, you'll feel a bit salty for it. You'll start running around the block and you'll just keep going.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It is. It's the biggest thing we have. Like there is no magic formula to this stuff. Oh, Gaz has gone.
Yeah, is that enough, mate? Just rhetorical statement.
But what you're saying there is so key in the fact that, or it's very pertinent. You could say that to someone. I think a lot of the problem is sometimes, and it's almost a problem with the approach that you and I take to health and fitness, and that we're like, you just need to optimize your sleep, do these actions, sleep in a dark room, get a routine in place, get off your phone, eat whole foods, blah, 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 and we'll give you the habits around it. It's almost because there's so much shit out there and like fancy marketing around blah, blah, blah. People think if it's not complicated or it isn't thingy, then it's not going to work. Like you saying there, to walk around, well, that's not going to help me. It's like, it's really hard. It's hard to get that across. To people. It's like, that is just the first step to take, and then you can build on that. But in actual fact, regular movement, everyone adding in walking in, would make a huge difference to most people's health. But they think they need to go to some. It's actually someone was saying, people would be better off, a lot of people, if you're generally sedentary in an office, there's a lot of people who then just go at lunchtime and do, say, a spin session or something. Okay, great, you're getting your heart rate up and you're getting cardiovascular benefits. Well, you've spent all day sitting down in an office and you've gone on your lunch break and sat down again. In terms of your general movement, your mobility, and lots of other factors, you'd be far better off going for a walk and doing some kind of mobility session than doing that for your general long-term health. But it doesn't sound exciting. It's not an exciting sell to people. Yeah. But it really is absolutely. It's the same. The Special Forces is the basics done well. There is nothing fancy or you use some bits of kit or whatever. But in reality, the core of it is that Special Forces soldiers are just very good at the basic drills, good drills on the range. good soldering skills. And that's all it is. Nothing fancy about it. And I'm sure, fighting the same experience, you look at fights like Conor McGregor or whoever, they've just got the fundamentals. And it's same with anything in life. If you do not have the fundamentals nailed, you are never going to progress to like a better level if that's what you wish to do. Foundations in anything are absolutely key.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really true, and it makes it not as complicated a headache for the individual as well. Like, I think a lot of people, when they do complicate things, or often they get into training and they don't think of it as this long-term, years in, years out process that requires consistency. They end up wanting that quick result. They push things too fast. They overcomplicate things. And for me, it's sort of like this hill. And they're coming up this hill, and they almost get to the peak of the hill, and they're like, oh, the experience was so bad, and they roll back down again. And they come back again a few years later, and they've got this bad memory of what their experiences are like. And they like G themselves up for this horrible experience because I need to, and it's all fear-based, and I'm going to be fat, and I'm going to die early, and I'm going to be ugly. And then they roll back down again. And there's this hump where if you kind of, take it like this, and you slowly come up the hill, eventually, boom, you hit that peak. And the obstacle of it, you get fit and you're freewheeling the rest of the way. You actually enjoy your training sessions. You like it. You're not pulling back before you got there. It's not all horrible. It's actually a point where you can enjoy your fitness. You can go for a run and be like, that was pleasant. It was nice today.
That's something that we use a similar analogy, but kind of like tipping the scales in your favor. And you're exactly right. Most people go through life and they bounce from, it's like a circle. They get to that really depressed state. They're overweight, unfit, and they're like, right, that's it. I'm making a change. They watch the motivational clips or whatever it is. They sign up for something. It's like for 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm going to hammer it, and they go hard out. And then something, as life does, something disrupts the training, or they go too hard and pull something or whatever it is, or can't sustain the diet, and then they just all or nothing, throw it all away, and then. They'll go along as they were for a bit, and then they'll go into another slump of, shit, I'm this, blah, blah, blah. Right, another thing of motivation, as opposed to you make those small changes. We always tell people in the beginning, if performance doesn't matter, forget about your performance and build the behavior. Once you build the behavior, performance will come later. But you're right, once you hit, for us sat here now, it's once you get those things in place, being healthy becomes quite easy because you tip the scales in your favor. It's part of your life, and you, like you said, you do free will. Ironically, the time when you need that the most is when you start on that journey, when you're really unfit. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. It's the hardest part. You can use those small actions to cultivate those behaviors, so you're not relying on huge doses of motivation and willpower. Then eventually you will hit that tipping point. And we see it all the time. People get those moments, like you just said, people are like, I've gone out and it's the first run I've ever enjoyed, because they followed one of Ed's structured programs that starts them off like in the beginning. So we get it all the time. It's so easy. People are like, is this really, should I be doing this? It doesn't feel like, I don't feel like I've done anything. Like, yeah, good. That is what we want you to be. You're not pushing it too far. You're not injuring yourself. And before you know it, within a few weeks, you'll be doing runs and enjoying them, but also quicker than you've ever done them before. But it's just getting people to adhere to that process in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the hardest things when it comes to people developing remotivation is those bad memories of, like, they don't realize how far up the slope they were before they let it come down. And so now there's a negative associated with the effort of trying to get there as well. It is like a difficult thing. And it's something actually, now being 40, I've worked on with myself. Like, even me, if I let it go, I've just had a baby and blah, 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 all the excuses. But like, when I come back to training, I'm used to being one of those guys that smashes it. And now I'm almost having to use my discipline in reverse to, whoa, horsey. And I've been consistently running almost twice a day now, because it's how my baby takes a nap. So I'm out there with the stroller pushing him along. And, you kind of know that there's the end in sight. And my natural urge is to give it that final kick and be bollocks by the time I finish my run. that's a habit for me. But it makes it that little bit harder because I know what that time's going to be. I know what that feeling is going to be that I'm going to have to put myself through when I go again. And it can actually be the difference between running daily and running 3 times a week. Yeah. And so one of the things I've had to do is just literally hold it back into the days where I just really feel like it. And most days it's something I've never done in my life. We're just like bimble in, just cruise in from the run. I've never done that before until the last month. And my goal is to keep doing this year in, year out. And hopefully, even at this age, layer on month after month, year after year, a level of cardiopulmonary endurance that I've never had before. That when I do start smashing it hard, my capacity will actually be higher, and then that muscular endurance that comes with it will only takes like, sort of sports science terms, like 3 to 8 weeks to develop. I'll actually be able to bring that at a higher level. Like my capacity will be at a higher level, and therefore even my short-term endurance will be better. And then to get in sports science because of increased capillarization and greater heart strength and stroke volume and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of where I'm going now, and it's very Russian, this level of research.
It's generally explained. Don't understand with most of the athletes not killing themselves all the time, like Ed, who's one of our coaches. He's a savagely fit himself, but he's trained North Face athletes, Olympians, a whole host of people. And it's big, like most people most of his training and most of what we prescribe is higher volume, but low intensity. Yeah. You don't need to be, and I was guilty of it as well. You look at CrossFit's a great example. People think that CrossFit athletes train like they see them at the games or in CrossFit gyms. They don't. It's mostly lower intensity but higher volume work. It's unsustainable for an athlete to do that year. That's why you see periodized training. So
exactly
that. It's flipping that mindset to understand what actual high performance equals. And it's because we like the feeling. You get that rush, and people like to feel like they've session.
I trained.
If they haven't got DOMs or they're aching all over, then they haven't done it. But it's so counterproductive to long-term, basically getting better results.
Yeah, I've done the same things in a lot of things, actually. I'm sort of taking the principle, and I will periodize it. I will change. I will have sort of moments where, I basically try and consolidate the gains and see what they actually are. But it's even things like pull-ups. My volume of pull-ups is so much more because my reps per set are lower. So I did 120 pull-ups the other day in sets of 6. I was using 24-kilo kettlebells the other day. I did a set of total reps 100 in sets of 3, and then a couple of sets just to make up the difference at the end to get it to that square number. But like you say, when I added it up, like the total volume of training is so much bigger. The DOMs isn't the same. My joints feel nicer, and I recover quicker, and I'm better to go the other again. And the neurological patterns that are being built. I always remind myself that strength is a skill as much as it is the size of your muscles. So it's how you guys all know this, but it's the neurological adaptation. It's how efficiently you fire those muscle fibers.
Greasing
the groove, exactly. So there's inter and intramuscular coordination on this. And it's something I actually knew from doing my sports science degree, and I would use it and probably end up stressing out my nervous system by doing loads of, power cleans and 5x5s and this kind of stuff. But I've actually really brought it down and included more sets, same weight, lower reps, reps, and then just bam, 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 and just shake it out, wait till I'm free, bop, 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 go again. And it's, I feel like it's working.
Yeah. But you only have to look at the programs of Olympic lifters to see that that's like obviously true. I mean, people talk about overtraining, and you see these sort of bodybuilder bro splits, like chest and arms on Monday, and then don't hit it again for another 7 days. Tuesdays back and abs or whatever. But Olympic lifters are training the same movements pretty much every single day, because they're refining that neurological pathway, consolidating it every time, building that muscle memory, and then, like you say, that neurological strength is what kind of plays its role when it comes to game day. So I wanted to cover some kind of actionable stuff that we can give to the guys that are listening. I think the general consensus of what we've been talking about there is that, factors that are going to come down to ultimate sort of success in terms of that end goal that you start with are consistency, born out of habits. Once you've given yourself enough time to consolidate behaviors into a habit, the motivation that comes with seeing those initial results, getting past that tipping point, as you refer to it as, Simon. But then we know that the most difficult part of this process for those people is just getting to that stage. It's sticking with it long enough to form those habits, to then become consistent, to then achieve that outcome. And we also talked very much at the start about enjoying the process rather than just chasing the destination. So what kind of things can people do at home, or what kind of things do you encourage the people that come to the Natural Edge, Simon, to change about their actual environment in order to facilitate getting into consolidating those behaviors into habits and seeing that consistency? I think, Gaz, you brought up a really great example, which I'm often talking about, which is incorporating the day-to-day activities that you're already doing into like a fitness regime. So a great excuse for you not to train would be, I'm with the kid all day, I've got a 1-year-old baby and I've got to look after him. But as you've just outlined, your runs are actually the time that you're looking after the boy, you're running with the buggy. So I think that's a really great example, like talking about how you can incorporate family, social interaction, all that stuff. But what other kind of examples spring to mind for you, Simon?
So again, it's making, essentially what you need to do is sit down and try and make it, is to remove as many barriers as possible. So, starting right back at the beginning, when you're kind of picking something that means something to you, so you've got a meaningful reason to be carrying out whatever it is. So it's really trying to find the strongest driver possible for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And the easiest way to do that is just literally sit down with a pen and paper and ask why. When you lose weight, why do you want to lose weight? Oh, because I want to fit into a certain dress. Or why do you want to fit into that certain dress? Because I want to go to this wedding, or blah, blah. If you keep digging down to why, the more you do that, you'll get down to real core reasons. And once you do that, it's far more powerful than just having, I guess, external motivation. So doing that in the beginning, and then once you've got that, making a plan, so that you've actually got something to follow and you've got it structured and written down. So many people are just like, oh, I'll do this then, and whatever it is. We talk about environment, giving the things that you're going to do a time and place to live. So rather than saying, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do this next week, you're physically saying on Monday at 12:30 during my lunch break, I will go to this gym, and having it written down, whether it's in a diary or a calendar. Once it's got a time and place to live, you're far more likely to carry it out. Simple things within your home, having your kit or whatever it is, gym kit, packed the night before so it's ready to go the next morning. Simple tricks around not having food in the house is probably one of the biggest things for me. I simply don't buy the stuff at the supermarket and have it in the house. Like earlier, before I came on this, I was going through a cupboard and I was like, I just want something sweet in here or blah, blah, blah. But I didn't because I hadn't bought it. And then you're just like, oh, whatever. And I've forgotten about it now. It really is a simple thing, but it does make a massive difference. Just designing the physical environment around you as much as you can. And yes, it is harder at work, but doing that as much as possible. Like you said, designing the environment around your social people. So the more you can associate with people, if you want to start running, you hate it, join a running club or find a couple of people that you want to spend time with to go with it. Small things like that make a huge difference to actually completing the activity, which again we've already talked about. Consistency is the biggest factor in all of this. So it's really sitting down, just taking some time and thinking about how can I remove as many barriers as possible and make it as easy as possible. And overall, starting slow and small enough so it feels easy in the beginning. Like you said, the negative, Gaz talks about negative connotations. If you're just starting to get fit and you try and go out and do a 10K run and you're miserable and you hate it because it's painful, you're not going to want to do it, the next time that you've got it planned in. Whereas if you go out and do something that is within your level, but is starting to push just slightly outside that comfort zone to improve, you'll be far more likely to do it again, and you'll get those incremental gains. It is all about those kind of 1% and slowly but sustainably making the improvements. If you just beast yourself, you're either going to end up injured, you're going to burn out the motivation that you did have, you're going to hate it so much that you don't want to do it again. So I think those are probably the big things for me. Planning it out, start small, look for consistency, not intensity, and find the real reason or a strong enough reason that really resonates with you, and even physically write it out to cement that. I think those are the big things that make a difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with every single one of those. And I think I strongly believe that if people spent as much time thinking about the 4 or 5 steps that you just outlined there as they do Googling, which exercises are best for a big chest, which diets are the best, but which burn fat the best, then people, the significance of that impact on people's lives would be biblical, would be massive, because it is about the environment. For me, this reason I wanted to have this chat is because there's 24 hours in a day. You're eating for maybe a couple of those. You're probably training. The average person, if they're training at all, is probably exercising for maybe an hour of that on average. That's 20. Hang on, boot neck. I'm a Marine. I don't do. There's 20 something other hours left. Where you're either sleeping or doing day-to-day stuff that can all lend itself towards your goals, and not only lend itself towards the outcome, 'cause again, we're talking more about enjoying the process, but make the whole journey more enjoyable while you're on it, and therefore sustainable in the long run. So, I think that's a great set of points that you outlined there, mate. Couldn't agree more. Anything to add, Yaz?
No, I'm done.
Yeah, awesome. Good stuff. Well, we could go on for ages about this. There's obviously loads of different avenues, and we have done a fairly broad range of that. Simon, if people want to hear a bit more about your stuff, you've got some great articles out there on the net and stuff, so why don't you tell people where they can find you and check you out?
The social media, just The Natural Edge on Instagram, same as Facebook, and then our website is thenaturaledge.com. So and if anyone wants anything else or specific questions, then welcome to drop an email. It's just simon@thenaturaledge.com. More than happy to answer anything.
Yeah, awesome. We'll have to do a round 2 at some point, dive a little bit deeper. There's loads I was hoping to get around to as well, and we haven't even got close. So awesome. Thanks so much for coming on today. Guys who are watching, make sure if you still haven't got your copy of the Fitter Body Stronger Mind ebook, that you go through and follow the link and grab that now. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones that are coming up. And more importantly than all of that, have an awesome day, and we'll all speak to you very soon. Take care. Signing out.